Imagine this. A storm is brewing, not in the sky, but beneath the polished surface of what seems to be the perfect suburban life. The scent of betrayal hangs in the air, just as subtle and insidious as the fragrance of a secret lover's perfume. In the heart of their quaint, sun-drenched home in a quiet Spanish town, Emily and Tom seemed to have it all. The laughter of their children echoed through the tiled hallways, and the aroma of freshly baked bread from the kitchen spoke of warmth and love. Yet, if you looked closely, you'd see the cracks, or rather, feel them under your fingertips. It's a late autumn evening. The sunset paints the sky in hues of betrayal, mirroring the turmoil in Emily's heart. She's setting the table for dinner, the clinking of cutlery like the ticking of a clock counting down to an inevitable revelation. Tom walks in, his smile as practiced as ever, but there's a new scent on his shirt, not the usual cologne, but something floral, something not his own. Emily notices but doesn't comment. Instead, she watches him, her heart heavy with suspicion that's been growing like a weed through the cracks of their marriage. She remembers the late nights at work, the sudden need for privacy with his phone, the unexplained absences. At the dinner table, the conversation is light, but Emily's mind is elsewhere, replaying every moment of doubt. She laughs at Tom's stories, but her laughter is hollow, echoing in the room like the distant rumble of thunder. The children chatter about their day, oblivious to the storm brewing within their mother. After dinner, as the kids go off to play, Emily picks up Tom's phone under the pretense of charging it. Her heart pounds in her chest like a drum, each beat a step closer to the truth she fears. And there it is, a text message from an unknown number. The message simple yet devastating. Can't wait to see you tonight. The air in the room turns colder, the walls seem to close in, and the once comforting sounds of home now feel like the whispers of conspiracy. Emily's world, once bright and secure, now feels like a stage set for a tragic play where she's both the audience and the lead, witnessing the prelude to her own heartache. She places the phone back, her hands trembling, her mind racing. Tonight, the stage is set for the first act of betrayal, but the curtain will fall with Emily not as a victim, but as the orchestrator of her own redemption. A story yet untold, but promised by the storm that's just begun. The night air outside was cool, but inside Emily's heart, there was a fire of confusion and anger. The text message from the night before had ignited a spark of suspicion that now threatened to consume her peace of mind. She lay in bed, Tom's rhythmic breathing beside her, an ironic lullaby to her insomnia. Each tick of the clock was another second she spent wrestling with the truth she was too afraid to confront. Morning came, but it brought no relief. The sun, usually a symbol of hope, seemed to mock her with its brightness. As she prepared breakfast, her movements were automatic, her thoughts far away, plotting her next move. She needed to know more, but the fear of the unknown was almost paralyzing. Tom kissed her goodbye, his touch now feeling like a betrayal. "I've got an early meeting," he said, his voice cheerful, his eyes not meeting hers. Emily watched him leave, her heart sinking with each step he took away from her. Determined, she decided to follow him. Her emotions were a tangled mess, betrayal mixed with a desperate hope that she was wrong, that this was all a misunderstanding. She trailed him discreetly, her heart in her throat, each step feeling like a descent into a reality she didn't want to acknowledge. He didn't go to the office. Instead, he drove to a quaint restaurant in town, one they had once visited together. There, she saw him sit down, not with a colleague, but with Sarah, her own best friend from college. The sight of them together, laughing, their heads close, was like a physical blow. Emily felt the air leave her lungs, her body trembling with a cocktail of emotions, shock, anger, and a profound sense of betrayal. She couldn't hear their conversation, but the intimacy of their interaction spoke volumes. Her mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Was this the first time? Her heart ached with each answer her imagination provided. Emily retreated, her steps heavy, her mind replaying the scene like a broken record. She found a secluded spot to sit, tears silently trailing down her cheeks. The betrayal wasn't just from Tom. It was from Sarah, someone she had trusted, shared secrets with, cried with. The pain was multifaceted, a betrayal that cut deep, slicing through years of friendship and love. As she sat there, the reality began to sink in. This wasn't an isolated incident. The signs had been there, ignored or dismissed. She remembered the times Sarah had been too busy to meet, the times Tom had been working late, the shared glances she had chalked up to old friends reconnecting. Emily's resolve hardened. She couldn't let this go. She needed to know the extent of this deception. Her emotions, once a whirlwind of confusion, now coalesced into a singular purpose: to uncover the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. She would not be the passive character in her own life's story. The seed of vengeance was planted, watered by her tears, growing with each moment of revelation. As she walked back home, the sun was still bright, but now it seemed to light her path to justice, to reclaiming her dignity. The storm within her was no longer just brewing. It was gathering strength, ready to unleash its full force. Tom felt the weight of deceit like a heavy cloak as he sat across from Sarah at the quaint restaurant. The laughter was forced, the conversation superficial. Every time he glanced at his phone, expecting a message from Emily, he felt a surge of guilt. He was living a double life, and the seams were beginning to show. His emotions were a battlefield. There was the thrill of the affair, the rush of being wanted in a way he hadn't felt in years, but alongside it, a growing dread gnawed at him. He knew he was playing with fire, and the heat was getting unbearable. Each lie he told Emily felt like another brick in a wall built around his heart, isolating him from the life he once cherished. Sarah's presence was both comforting and a constant reminder of his betrayal. He watched her laughter, her easy smiles, and thought of Emily. The comparison was inevitable, and with each passing moment, the disparity between the passionate escapades with Sarah and the comforting routine with Emily became stark. As they planned their weekend getaway, Tom's conscience screamed. He imagined Emily finding out, the look of hurt and betrayal in her eyes. The thought made his stomach churn. He was caught between wanting to end this and the fear of losing everything. The thrill was wearing off, replaced by a suffocating anxiety. Back at the office, he couldn't concentrate. His mind kept replaying every close call, every near miss where he almost got caught. The hotel bookings, the secretive phone calls, all of it felt like a noose tightening around his neck. He started to see signs everywhere. Colleagues' knowing looks, a misplaced receipt, even the way the receptionist greeted him felt like an accusation. That evening, as he returned home, Tom was more on edge than ever. He expected confrontation, but Emily greeted him with the usual warmth. Her normalcy was unnerving. Did she know? Was she playing along? His heart raced, his palms sweaty. He observed her closely, looking for signs of suspicion. Every small silence, every forced smile from Emily made him feel like he was under a microscope. Dinner was a quiet affair, the silence heavy with unspoken words. Tom felt like he was walking on eggshells, each clink of cutlery sounding like the countdown to his undoing. When Emily casually asked about his day, he nearly confessed, the words on the tip of his tongue. But fear of the fallout kept them locked away. Later, as he prepared for bed, he heard Emily on the phone, her voice hushed. Was she talking to someone about him? His paranoia spiked. He couldn't help but check his phone again, deleting messages from Sarah, feeling like a criminal erasing evidence. Lying in bed, he couldn't sleep. His mind was a storm of guilt, fear, and a desperate wish to turn back time. He knew he was close to being exposed, and the thought was terrifying. The life he had built with Emily, his family, his reputation, all were at stake. He realized he might lose everything, and for what? A fleeting escape from reality that now seemed more like a nightmare. As sleep finally claimed him, his last thought was of Emily's smile, and how he might never see it genuinely directed at him again. The web of lies he had spun was now a trap closing in on him, and he was only now realizing how ensnared he truly was. The days that followed were like living in a house of mirrors for Emily. Every interaction with Tom felt distorted and deceptive. Her smile was a mask, her casual questions a fishing net cast for truths. She watched him like a hawk, noting every twitch, every too long pause when he spoke about his day. At breakfast, she tested the waters. "How was the meeting yesterday?" she asked, her tone light but her eyes sharp. Tom's fork paused midair, a moment of hesitation that screamed louder than any words. "It was productive," he said, his voice too careful, too rehearsed. Emily's heart clenched. She knew he was lying, but she played along, her smile never wavering. The air in the room was thick with tension, every mundane conversation a potential trap. She brought up the restaurant from the day before. "I heard the new Italian place is good. Have you been?" Tom's eyes flickered, a brief dance of panic before he managed, "No, haven't had the chance." Emily nodded, the lie piling onto her collection of evidence, her resolve hardening. Her emotions were a swirling mix, anger at his deceit, sorrow for the love lost, and a fierce determination for justice. She found herself questioning everything, their past, their love, the authenticity of every shared moment. Yet, she was careful not to show her hand too soon. She needed more, the undeniable proof that would not just confirm her suspicion, but also give her the upper hand. During a family dinner, Emily noticed Tom's phone vibrating. He glanced at it, his face a mask of composure, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. "Work again?" she asked, her voice tinged with a feigned sympathy. "Yes, just some last-minute issues," he replied, his voice tense. Emily saw the caller ID. Sarah. Her heart pounded, but she kept her composure, her mind racing with plans. That night, in the quiet of their bedroom, she confronted him subtly. "You've been working so hard lately, it must be exhausting," she murmured, her tone laced with double meanings. Tom agreed, his relief at her apparent ignorance evident. But Emily was far from ignorant. She was biding her time, collecting her arsenal. Each day she gathered more fragments of the truth, a hotel receipt here, a text message there. Her emotions were no longer just of betrayal. There was a growing sense of empowerment in her strategy. She was not just the wronged wife. She was becoming the architect of her own vindication. As she lay awake, plotting her next move, she knew the climax was near. The big reveal was on the horizon, and she would ensure it would be on her terms, with the full force of her newfound resolve. The mask of normalcy was about to drop, and beneath it, the truth would finally see the light. The tension in the house had reached a palpable peak, like the air before a thunderstorm. Each day, Emily and Tom were locked in a silent dance of deceit and detection, every conversation a potential landmine. One evening, as they cleared the dinner dishes, Emily couldn't hold back the probing any longer. "You've been working so late lately, Tom. Is everything okay at the office?" Her voice was soft, but there was an edge to it. Tom, caught off guard, nearly dropped a plate. "Yeah, fine, just a big project," he said, his voice strained, avoiding her gaze as he stacked the dishes. Emily pressed on, "It must be exhausting. I wonder if you're seeing someone else to cope with the stress." Her words were casual, but her eyes were like daggers. Tom laughed, a sound too high-pitched to be genuine. "What? No, of course not. Why would you even think that?" "Because I found this," Emily said, pulling out a hotel receipt from her pocket. The silence that followed was deafening. Tom's face drained of color. That's for a business conference," he stammered, his mind racing for an excuse. "Really, Tom? In the same hotel where you've been meeting Sarah?" Emily's voice was cold, her pain masked by anger. Tom's world seemed to crumble. "Emily, let me explain." "Explain what? That you're not just cheating on me, but doing it with my best friend?" Her voice broke, the facade of control slipping. Sarah's name hung in the air like a specter. Tom's shoulders slumped. "It was a mistake, Emily. It meant nothing." "Nothing?" Emily's voice rose. "How many times, Tom? How long has this been going on?" "It was just a few times, I swear. I was going to end it." Emily laughed bitterly. And when were you planning on telling me, after you've drained our savings for your little escapades? Tom looked genuinely shocked. What are you talking about? I've seen the bank statements, Tom. The charges don't lie. Emily's accusation was like a physical blow. Tom, now on the defensive, raised his voice. You've been spying on me? What kind of marriage is this where you don't trust me? A marriage where trust is buried under lies, Emily shot back, her voice echoing through the house. The argument escalated, both pushing each other's buttons, each word a weapon. Why, Tom? Why her? Emily demanded, her voice cracking with betrayal. I don't know, Emily. I was lonely. I felt unappreciated. Unappreciated? Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. I've given everything to this family, to you. And what about my needs, my feelings? Tom retorted, his own emotions spilling over, a mix of guilt and self-justification. You found someone to appreciate you, didn't you? And at what cost, Tom? Our marriage? Our family? Emily's voice was thick with tears now, her pain raw. Tom's defiance weakened. I'm sorry, Emily. I love you, but what, Tom? You love her too? Or is it just the thrill of betrayal? Emily's question was rhetorical, her heart hardening against him. The silence that followed was one of realization. Emily knew then that the end was near, but she wasn't ready to let go just yet. She needed to see this through, to ensure her own satisfaction in the fallout. She walked away, leaving Tom with his guilt, both knowing that this was far from over. The battle lines were drawn, and the next confrontation would be the decisive one. The house was now a battleground, with every corner whispering of betrayal, and every conversation a potential skirmish. Emily, however, had begun to strategize her next moves with a newfound ally. One evening, after another tense dinner, she met Mark at a local cafe, someone both she and Tom knew from their social circle. Mark had always had a soft spot for Emily, and now, seeing her distress, he was all too ready to help. I need you to do something for me, Emily said, her voice low, her eyes scanning for any sign of Tom's spies. Mark nodded, his concern evident. Anything. I need you to watch him, not just at work but everywhere. I need to know everything, she instructed, her voice laced with a mix of desperation and determination. Mark agreed, his loyalty to Emily outweighing any friendship with Tom. But what's your end game here, Emily? I want to end this on my terms, Mark. I want him to realize what he's lost, what he's done, she said, her eyes glinting with a resolve that scared even her. The tension at home escalated. Tom, sensing the walls closing in, became more paranoid. Each day was a chess game, with Emily making calculated moves. She left subtle hints around the house, like a note from Sarah accidentally left on the kitchen counter, watching Tom's reaction from the corner of her eye. Did Sarah come by today? Emily asked one evening, feigning innocence while observing Tom's every micro-expression. No, why would she? Tom's reply was too quick, too defensive. Emily picked up the note. Oh, this must have been from her then, from last week maybe? She handed it to him, watching as his face paled. Tom read it, his hands trembling slightly. I don't know how that got there. It's amazing how things just appear, isn't it? Emily said, her voice chillingly calm. The air was thick with unspoken accusations. Tom knew he was being cornered, but he didn't know by how many. Meanwhile, Mark's reports were coming in. Tom had been seen with another woman, not just Sarah. Emily's heart ached with each new piece of information, but her resolve only grew stronger. I saw him with someone else, Mark told her one night, his voice low over the phone. Emily felt the sting of betrayal anew, but also a surge of power. Thank you, Mark. We're almost there. As she hung up, she knew the climax was imminent. She was ready to expose Tom not just for the affair with Sarah, but for his double life. The stage was set for a public humiliation, and Emily was no longer just the betrayed. She was now the orchestrator of her own justice. The tension in their home was now like an overstretched rubber band, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. Emily had planned every detail of what would be Tom's grand exposure. She'd invited friends over for a dinner party, under the guise of celebrating their anniversary, a bitter irony given the circumstances. The house was aglow with candlelight, the air fragrant with the aroma of betrayal masked by the scent of cooking. Emily was the epitome of grace, but her eyes were those of a storm brewing. Guests arrived, including Sarah, who seemed oblivious to the trap she was walking into. Mark was there too, his presence a silent support for Emily. Tom, dressed impeccably but visibly nervous, played the part of the doting husband, unaware of the performance he was about to give. The dinner began with laughter and clinking glasses, but Emily's smile was sharp, her gaze constantly on Tom. As the main course was served, Emily stood up. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate our unique anniversary," she said, her voice sweet, yet dripping with sarcasm. "But before we enjoy dessert, I have a little surprise." Tom's smile faltered, a bead of sweat visible on his brow. Emily pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling not with fear but with anticipation. "I've been collecting memories, you see. Memories that I think our dear friends should share in," she announced, her voice steady. She played a recording first, the sound of Tom's voice, unmistakably, talking lovingly to someone not her. The room fell silent, the only sound the damning words from the phone. Sarah's face turned ashen, her eyes darting around, betrayal and guilt mingling in her expression. Tom tried to speak. "Emily, this isn't—" "Oh, but there's more," Emily interrupted, now displaying photos on the projector she had set up. Images of Tom with Sarah, in intimate settings, at dinners, at hotels. Then, the final blow, pictures with the other woman Mark had seen him with, proving his infidelity wasn't just a one-sided affair with Sarah. The gasps around the room were like the chorus to Emily's orchestrated symphony of exposure. Tom's world was collapsing. His reputation, his marriage, his facade, all crumbling under the weight of undeniable evidence. "Tom, how could you?" One of their friends finally spoke, breaking the stunned silence. It was a mistake," Tom stammered, looking around for an ally, finding none. Sarah stood up, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I never meant for this to—" "To what, Sarah? Ruin my life?" Emily's voice was icy, her satisfaction in their discomfort palpable. Emily then revealed the financial discrepancies, showing how Tom had been siphoning money for his escapades. The betrayal was not just emotional, but financial, stripping him of any remaining dignity in the eyes of their friends. As the evening drew to a close, Emily felt a surge of power. She had orchestrated this moment, turning her pain into a public spectacle that would haunt Tom forever. But she knew this was just the beginning of her redemption. "Thank you all for joining me in this revelation," she said, her voice now calm, almost serene. "I believe it's time for some new beginnings." She had already planned her next steps, securing her independence, ensuring her children's future, and perhaps, with Mark's support, finding happiness again. The stage was set not just for Tom's downfall, but for Emily's rise from the ashes of betrayal. The final act was about to unfold, and Emily was ready to claim her victory. The morning after the dinner party felt like the calm after a storm, yet the air was electric with the aftermath of revelations. Emily sat in her lawyer's office, papers spread out before her. The satisfaction of the previous night's events was still fresh, but now it was time to formalize her next steps. "I want full custody, and I want the house," Emily stated, her voice firm, no longer the wavering tone of a betrayed wife, but that of a woman reclaiming her life. Her lawyer nodded. "Given what you've shown me, we have a strong case. His business partners have already reached out, concerned about his integrity." Emily felt a surge of vindication. The news of Tom's double life had spread like wildfire, affecting not just their personal lives but his professional one as well. Meanwhile, Tom was in his office, or what was left of it. His business associates had called an emergency meeting. The room was tense, the atmosphere as heavy as the night Emily had exposed him. Tom, we can't overlook this. Your personal life has compromised our trust, said one partner, his voice cold. I understand, but I can fix this, Tom pleaded, his desperation palpable. You've lost the company a lot of face, not to mention the financial mismanagement, another added, slamming down a report on the table. Tom's world was collapsing. His marriage, his business, his reputation, all gone. He sat there, defeated, his head in his hands. The partners left him with an ultimatum: resign or face legal action. Back at the house, Emily was packing Tom's things. She felt a mix of sorrow for what once was and relief for what was to come. Mark came over, helping her, his presence comforting. Did you see the news? Mark asked, showing her an article about Tom's forced resignation. Emily nodded. He's getting exactly what he deserves. Mark looked at her, his eyes filled with admiration. You're an incredible woman, Emily. You've turned this around in a way most wouldn't. Emily smiled, a genuine smile. It's not just about revenge, Mark. It's about taking back my life, my dignity. As they packed, Emily's phone buzzed. It was Sarah, her voice broken on the voicemail. Emily, I'm truly sorry. I've lost everything too, but I understand if you never forgive me. Emily didn't respond. She had moved past forgiveness or revenge. She was focused on her future. The final act was in court, where the divorce was settled in Emily's favor. She walked out, not just with her head held high, but with a sense of liberation. Tom, on the other side, looked broken, his once vibrant life now a shadow of what it was. Outside the courthouse, Emily and Mark shared a quiet moment. What now? Mark asked. Now I start anew, with my kids, with my life, maybe with you, Emily said, looking into his eyes, seeing not just a friend, but a potential partner in this new chapter. Mark smiled. I'd like that. As they walked away, Emily felt a profound sense of peace. She had navigated through the storm of betrayal, emerging not just unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and ready for a new dawn. The story of her pain had ended, but her life was just beginning anew, filled with hope, love, and the promise of happiness. The end was not an end, but a beautiful beginning.